Shalom, friends. Welcome to another Shear in Tanya. I'm Eliyahu Shear from Chesed Ve'emet, www.lovingkindness.co. As I said, we're learning the Tanya written by the Alter Rebbe. We're on chapter 4 at the moment, and we're looking at the text as it appears in the well-known set of books called The Lessons in Tanya, which is available online for free at chabad.org. And we are making use of it over here with the permission of the Kohot Publication Society. Now, we ended off last time with the idea that when one wants to get close to Hashem, the way to do it is through the study of the Torah, because Hashem immerses himself, so to speak. He reveals himself within the letters of the Torah. And what we said at the end of chapter 4, which we're concluding at the moment here, is that when one studies the Torah, what we are doing, so to speak, is we are hugging the king. The king is to be found in garments. And when one hugs the king, even though he has garments on him, we must realize that we're still ultimately hugging the king. And no matter how many garments the king has, we are still hugging the king, even though he wears these garments. So too, the Torah is the garments of Hashem. God hides himself, so to speak, within the letters of the Torah. And when we begin to study the Torah, we begin to hug the king. We begin to feel and experience the feeling of touching the king, even though we are unable to touch him literally. We are able to experience him through the garments. And when one hugs the garments, one hugs what is inside the garments. This is where we're up to over here. And so too, if the king hugs him with his arm, then he too is enclosed inside the robes. To illustrate that Torah is analogous to a royal embrace, the Alter Rebbe quotes, "K'moshe kasuv v'mino techalkeni," and it says over there in the pasuk that his right hand hugs me, which means to say that this is a pasuk from the Torah that's teaching us that the king is hugging us back. How does he hug us back? Through the study of the Torah, through the words of the Torah. Shehi HaTorah, Shenitna miyamim. This is the Torah which was given with the right hand of God. Shehi bechinas chesed umayim, which is the aspect of kindness and water. As we said before, the concept of the Torah is the concept of kindness, and the concept of the Torah is kindness and also of water. And as we said before, that water is a substance that flows from above to below, and what we have below is the exact same substance as it appears above. We discussed the issue that the better example to give of what the Torah is water as opposed to light, because light is something that when we are at the end of it, at the receiving end of the light that we receive is not the exact same power as the light that is given off, like the light of the sun and what we receive here on the earth. So too, the Torah is kind, and the Torah is water. Water and kindness go hand in hand. And so what we have down here as the Torah is literally the Torah as is the word of God from above coming down to us over here. As explained in the Kabbalah, the right hand represents both chesed and water. And as said earlier, Torah is compared to water, and the left hand represents Gevurah and fire. When the verse states that God's right hand embraces me, the intention is that God embraces and envelops the soul through Torah, God's right hand. Thus, the bond that Torah study creates between the soul and God is twofold. The soul embraces God and is embraced by God. In this, Torah study is superior to other mitzvot, as discussed in the following chapter. We now move ahead to chapter 5.
Well, we know this in Pirkei Avot where it says Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam.
Right, Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, and he's going to discuss that as well, this same type of concept. But even more so than it's Keneged Kulam is that it's not even that it's on, that if you put it on a scale and you see it in comparison, that you want to say that it's comparable, but in fact it outweighs it to the degree that it's a complete revelation of God. All other mitzvahs that we're involved in are simply a connecting, a variable that allows us to connect to God. But when we study the Torah, we connect with God as if we are hugging him and experiencing him more so than there is actually a separation. Now we move on to chapter 5 over here. So we read the introduction over here so that we can understand more about it. At the conclusion of the previous chapter, the Alter Rebbe depicted the study of Torah as a royal embrace. When one studies Torah, his intellect embraces and encompasses the divine will and wisdom, and thus he embraces the King of Kings himself, since he and his wisdom are one. In turn, the King, God's will and wisdom, embraces the mind of the Torah student. But while it is readily understood that the mind can be described as embracing the Torah knowledge that it absorbs, the meaning of Torah as embracing one's intellect is unclear, which means to say, how is it that I am embracing the Torah? That's fine. But now that the Torah is embracing me, how does that work exactly? In chapter 5, the Alter Rebbe clarifies this point. He does so by elucidating the term grasp, used in the statement by Elijah, Eliyahu Navi, in other words, quoted in the previous chapter, that no thought can grasp God except by way of grasping the Torah. Primarily, however, this chapter aims to show how Torah study is superior to all other mitzvot. Not only is one encompassed by God's will when he studies the Torah, as when he performs any mitzvah, but furthermore, he embraces God by understanding his wisdom as set forth in Torah. So here we begin. And to describe in more detail, to explain it in more better, this language of grasping that Eliyahu said. He said that leis machshava tfisa bach, that no thought can grasp you, God. What does it mean that no thought can grasp you? Of course, we can't grasp you with a thought like a person grasps a material item with his hands. As explained in chapter 4, we cannot ordinarily grasp God with our intellect, but only through Torah study. Realizing our inability to comprehend godliness will thus explain how we do grasp him through Torah. Hine, called seichel, every single mind, every single intellect that we have. When a person begins to think in his mind, any intellectual subject, what happens is the intellect, which means our ability to think out the idea, begins to encompass the concept which we are thinking about. And it encompasses it through his intellect. So this sounds pretty obvious. What we're doing as we're immersing ourselves in the Torah is that our mind is immersed and surrounding the idea that we are thinking about. Now the idea that we're thinking about, nitpas umukaf, is grasped and is being encompassed, umelubash, and is enclosed, betoch haseichel, within the intellect itself. Intellect is now the concept of the mind that is surrounding the idea, shehesigu vehiskilu, that a person is able to grasp and to perceive. The subject, which is now within the human intellect, is surrounded and encompassed by that intellect, much as a material object is surrounded by the hand that grasps it. So the first thing that we have is that our ability to grasp intellectual subject comes about from our mind. And as we begin to think about godly subjects, as we begin to immerse our mind in the Torah, our mind surrounds the subject that we are studying. But the subject can be said to be within the mind only once the mind has fully understood it, as indicated also by the Alter Rebbe's use of the past tense. The intellect that understood and perceived it. Before mastering the subject, however, while the mind is engaged in analyzing its details, the subject is still above the mind, and the relationship between them is the reverse. The mind is within the subject and is encompassed by it. So what happens is we have subject matter in front of us. We have a page of Torah that we're about to learn. In the beginning, when we start to learn the subject is what is surrounding us, meaning we have not yet penetrated to the subject in order to bring it into ourselves. And the key, the trick, is to be able to penetrate the subject so that ultimately our intellect surrounds the subject, and that the subject is not what is surrounding our intellect. In the Alter Rebbe's words, v'gam haseichel melubash b'muskal, and the intellect is enclosed inside that with what we're talking about, the subject, b'sha'a shemasiko v'tofso b'siklo, at the time that a person grasps it and he puts it into his mind. Thus, in the act of understanding an idea, The mind both encompasses the concept and is encompassed by it. And this is the significance of the term grasping used above. So when we say that no thought can grasp God, and yet we're trying to grasp God, what we're speaking about is this very idea of taking the subject matter, which is out of our ability to grasp, and then we are surrounding the subject matter with our intellect, and then we are bringing that subject matter within our minds so that ultimately we surround the subject matter. Derech mashal, here is an example. Adam mevin umasig eizo halacha, when a person begins to understand and is grasping a particular halacha, the Mishnah, or he's learning the Mishnah, or the Gemara, le'ashura al-buriya, when he begins to understand it clearly, and he can understand exactly what's going on in the matter that he's learning, hare siklo tofes umakifota, then his intelligence grasps and surrounds the subject matter. V'gam siklo melubash ba, and now his intellect is also enclosed within the subject matter, but also sha'ah, at that moment in time. Why is he going on with all of this? Because he's trying to explain to us the idea that once we understand how to study Torah, once we understand how to apply ourselves, that we have to realize that when we do study Torah and we bring the Torah within us, then we are able to grasp and to become closer to Hashem. And that is the key. We have to work with intellect. We have to work with our Chabad, the Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'as. And as we study the Torah, we begin to experience, so to speak, this mind of God and his desire of what it is that he wants from us. V'hinei, halacha zo, and this halacha, hi chokhmaso uretzono shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the wisdom and the desire of the Holy One, blessed is he. The rationale underlying the halacha is God's wisdom, and the ruling itself is God's will, as mentioned in chapter 4, which means to say, when we study Torah and we learn a halacha, and there are different opinions, and we're trying to debate which opinion are we going to follow, what we need to realize is the halacha that is being discussed is literally the will of God. That means to say that if the halacha indicates we need to do something, we need to eat matzah on Pesach, we need to wave a lulav on Sukkot, we need to put tefillin on our arms and our heads in the morning when we daven. This is actually the will of God. It is the wisdom of God, and it is the will of God, and therefore, this is what God wants from us. She'ala beritzono, that it arose in God's will. Shekashiyit on Reuven kach v'kach. Now here's the story. When, for example, Reuven will come along and he'll make a claim of such and such, derech mashal as an example, v'Shimon kach v'kach, they come to a beis din, Reuven and Shimon, and they want to know the outcome of the particular case. Reuven says that Shimon stole some money. And Shimon says he didn't steal the money. Reuven gave him the money, and they take it to the beis din. The beis din begin to discuss the matter, and eventually they're going to come out with a particular ruling. And it's going to be that the final outcome is going to be such and such. And even if when we're studying the Torah, this particular case never was and will never be, ever, lavo lemishpat, to come to judgment, al ta'anos utvios elu, through all of these claims and arguments, thus, with the purpose of Torah study only to learn how to practice its laws, in this case, how to resolve this dispute, then the study of such a law would indeed serve no purpose. In fact, however, there is great value in studying even such a halacha, for thereby one knows God's will and wisdom and attaches himself to it, as the Alter Rebbe continues. So what's going on here is that if we go to a beis din and Reuven is claiming X and Shimon is claiming X, and the judgment comes out in favor of Reuven or Shimon, we say that this is actually the will of God. This is the desire of God. This is what the Torah wants. But even if we study this in the laws of Choshen Mishpat, a particular case, and we want to know if a particular scenario comes up in a particular way, then even if nobody ever sees the scenario taking place, we have to realize that the very learning of the Torah is teaching us God's will, and whether or not it comes to be into a form of practice, nevertheless, we attach ourselves to God through studying what it is that He desires, His will. Mikol makom, nevertheless, since this is what came up, meaning in God's will, and His wisdom, that if this person would claim such and such, and this person, the other one, would claim such and such, then that the final halachic ruling would be such and such. Hooray, behold, when a person knows and is able to grasp in his mind this particular halacha, kahalacha ha'arucha b'mishnah or gemara or poskim, if a person gets to understand it like halacha, which is laid out, or the mishnah or the gemara or the poskim, wherever it is that he's studying this point, if one arrives at the identical verdict on the basis of any other legal system, this verdict represents human knowledge, not divine wisdom. If, however, he derives the ruling from Torah, then this person grasps and he encompasses with his intellect the will and the wisdom of the Holy One, blessed is He. And what do we say about that? That there is no thought that can grasp Him. And nobody can understand His will properly and His wisdom. But nevertheless, when a person is engaged in the study of Torah, he literally does grasp God through understanding the will through the particular cases and discussions that we learn about in the Torah. And how do we learn it? Through the clothing, through all of the halachot that are laid out in front of us. This is one facet of understanding Torah, namely, that thereby one's intellect encompasses the divine will and wisdom. Furthermore, one's own mind becomes enclosed within these particular laws, within the divine will and wisdom contained in Torah. His mind is encompassed by them. This is a wonderful state that we're talking about, whereby obviously the more a person thinks about any type of wisdom that a human being has written down. For example, if I learn a particular article that was written by a certain person, as I learn that particular article, so to speak, I make a connection with the person whose article I'm reading, and it becomes a part of me. And so to speak, I am a part of this person, and he is within me as well. But this is very superficial. This is a simple article written in a secular journal of some kind, whatever it is. Together, we take part in making a connection, one to the other. When one studies the Torah, the connection that is made is between ourselves and God. That's the difference. The material that we're learning becomes a part of us. We become a part of it, which is the divine will and the wisdom of God. This is a wondrous unity. That there is no unity like it. Nothing can be compared to it. Nothing can be compared to this at all within the realms of physicality. Of two things as disproportionate as human intellect and Torah, God's intellect is lihiyot la'achadim umeyuchadim mamash mikol tzad upina, is to be completely unified from every side and angle. V'zois ma'ala yisera gedola v'nifla'a le'en kaitz. And this is a level which is so superior and wondrous that it has no end to it. That when a person is involved in mitzvahs and knowing the Torah and grasping it, I'll call her mitzvahs masios, on all the practical mitzvahs. Even the mitzvahs that are dependent on speech, like the study of Torah or speaking well of certain things. And even on the mitzvah of the study of Torah, which is done through speech. The precept of Torah study may be performed by reciting passages of scripture even if one is ignorant of their meaning. When one reads the words of the Chumash, even if one doesn't really understand what's going on, he fulfills a mitzvah of studying Torah. Such study, however, lacks the infinitely superior quality of comprehending Torah, namely, ki al yedei kol ha-mitzvahs shebedibur, that through the means of all mitzvahs of speech, umaisa, and action, HaKadosh Baruch Hu malbish es hanefesh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu enclothes the soul, umakifa, and surrounds it, or Hashem, the light of Hashem, meirosha v'ad ragla, from the head down to the foot, from its highest levels to its lowest. When a person then comes to study the Torah, not only is it that his mind becomes enclosed in the wisdom of Hashem, it's the wisdom of Hashem that becomes internalized inside him. This is the difference between the study of Torah and the study of anything in the secular world. When one is involved in the study of Torah, he brings godly wisdom inside of himself. In comparison to learning a secular subject and understanding the secular parts of it, which is all very well and good and fine, certainly nothing wrong with it. But the difference in studying Torah is that a person brings within him the knowledge of God. God becomes this part of him in a realistic manner. He experiences the divinity inside him through the words of the Torah. Masig, that the intellect is able to grasp, but tofes, and another word for grasping, umakiv besichlo, and it surrounds his intellect. Mashe efshar lo litfos, that he's able to grasp, ulasig miyadias haTorah, whatever he can grasp and understand from the knowledge of the Torah. Ish kafi sichlo, every person in accordance with his own intellect, v'koach yediaso, and the strength of his knowledge, the power of his knowledge, v'hasagaso, and his comprehension, the Pardes, in the 4 levels of the Torah, the Pshat, the Remez, the Drush, and the sword. Each person is able to grasp Torah on his own level in all 4 areas, and to that degree, he's able to cleave to Hashem from level to level, one level above the next. Thus, apart from the effect that Torah shares with other mitzvot, namely that a mitzvah, when performed, envelops the soul in divine light, Torah study has the additional effect of filling the soul internally with the light of divine wisdom contained in the Torah that the soul grasps and encompasses. Ulefi, and since it is, shebiyadias haTorah, when a person comes to know the Torah, haTorah melubeshet benefesh adam, the Torah becomes enclosed in a person's soul, the sichlo, and his intelligence, umokefet betocham, and he himself becomes enveloped within them. Lachein, therefore, nikraes b'shem lechem umazon hanefesh. The Torah, and the words of the Torah, are called by the term of bread and nourishment for the soul, bread and food for the soul. Why? Just as it is that bread, physical bread, nourishes the body. When a person puts the bread into his body, the kirbo mamash, right inside him, there inside a person's body, this bread is turned into blood and into the flesh, becomes a part of his own flesh. This is exactly what the Torah does to us as well. As we study the words of the Torah and they enter us, the words become ourselves, we become the words, we become the living Torah. Whatever enters us penetrates our soul to the degree that food penetrates the physical body. And just as it is likewise with the bread, a person is able to live and exist. So too with the knowledge of the Torah, and coming to grasp it, benefesh adam, in a person's soul, that he studies the Torah well, as he puts in tremendous effort using his intellectual faculties, until it becomes grasped in his intellect, and ultimately this unites with him, and he becomes one with the very words that he's studying. Na'aseh mazon lenefesh. This becomes food for the soul. This is what the Torah is doing to us. The Torah is acting as our sustenance to keep our souls alive, to give life to the soul. And it becomes his inner life from the life of all living, meaning from God, Ein Sof Baruch Hu, from the Infinite One, blessed is He. And he is enclosed within his wisdom. The Torah and the Torah, which now becomes a part of the soul of the Torah students. And that's what's written. The Torah Sacha betoch me'ai. This is what David HaMelech said in the book of Psalms. He says, your Torah has become a part of my innards. Your Torah is in my inner parts, meaning that the Torah is food for the soul. As it's brought in Eitz Chaim, Sha'ar Mem Dalet Perek Gimel, She'levushe HaNeshamas Began Eden Hena Mitzvahs. When a person leaves this world and he needs a garment, when he enters into the next world, the Eitz Chaim says that the garments that he wears in the next world, the Levushe HaNeshamas, the garments of the souls, Began Eden, are the mitzvahs. Every time we perform a mitzvah, we make a garment for our souls, which will protect us in the worlds above from the extreme power of the radiance of the Shekhinah in that world. In paradise, souls enjoy the radiance of the divine presence. In order that the soul, a finite being, be capable of bearing the infinite radiance, it must be shielded by spiritual garments. The mitzvot it performed during its life on earth provide the soul with these garments. For as explained above, performing mitzvot envelops the soul in divine light, as a garment envelops the body. That's the side of mitzvahs. What do we say of the side of Torah? V'ha-Torah hi hamazon l'neshamas. The Torah is the food for the souls. She'asku ba'olam hazeh b'Torah lishmah. Those souls that occupy themselves within this world in the study of Torah for the sake of Torah. They didn't study Torah because they were looking for money. They didn't study Torah because they were looking for honor and glory. They studied Torah because they loved the words of Torah. They wanted to fulfill God's will of studying Torah in this world. These souls need the food that they need in the next world. This is through the study of Torah that they accomplish in this world. As is brought down over there in the Zohar. Lishmah, what does it mean to study Lishmah? This is to connect one's soul to God through grasping the Torah. When we put our efforts into studying Torah, we use our minds to contemplate the words of Torah. We begin to study on the level of Lishmah. All that interests us is to love the study for what it is and to grow and to become closer to Hashem. Every person according to his level of wisdom, his intellect, as is brought in the pre-Eitz Chaim. We thus see from the above statement in Eitz Chaim that the Torah is the food of the soul and mitzvahs are its garments. But the question now arises, if Torah and mitzvahs each have their own unique quality, why the superiority of Torah study over mitzvahs? The Alter Rebbe answers this by defining the terms food and garments in their spiritual context. From this explanation, it will become clear that Torah has the qualities of both food and garment, hence its superiority. So what we have over here is, as you said so nicely, Shmuel, that we said that that Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, that if the study of Torah is going to be in equating that relative to all other mitzvahs, or on that level, its greatness is similar to everything else. But what makes it superior? The Alter Rebbe answers this by defining the terms food and garments in their spiritual context. The Hamazon, he bechinas or pnimi. The food is the aspect of the internal light. V'halevushim bechinas makifim, and the garments are the aspect of the makifim. So we have two types of lights. We have an internal light and we have an external light. The external light surrounds the vessel. The internal light fills the vessel. The external light, the mitzvot, the garments. The internal light, the study of the Torah, which penetrates inside us. And therefore our rabbis said, Shetalmud Torah shakul keneged kol mitzvahs, that the study of Torah is equivalent to all the mitzvahs. Lefisha mitzvahs, here he says over there, combined. So if we take the power of Torah and we weigh it out against all other mitzvahs, we find that it is outweighing all the other mitzvahs on the other side of the scale. Lefisha mitzvahs, hein levushim levad. And the reason is because the mitzvahs are only garments. Torah, he mazon, and the Torah is the food, the gam levush nefesh hamaskelet, and it also acts as a garment for the soul that is grasping it. Shemitlapesh, but that it is one clothes oneself in it, but iyuna v'limuda, through one's intensive study through it. V'kol shekain, and all the more so, keshemoitzi befiv bedibur, when a person says the words of Torah through speech, he actually pronounces the words, which is really the mitzvah of the Torah, that when a person is studying Torah, he should actually pronounce the words like we're doing. And of course, if anybody's in the Shear and they're listening to the Shear, they are taking a part in the pronunciation by listening also. They are having an active part of the speech itself. Shehevel hadibur naaseh bechinas or makif, because the moment that a person speaks out these words, then the air that is coming out makes the external light. K'moshe kosov the pre-Eitz Chaim, as it is written in the pre-Eitz Chaim. We thus see that Torah study possesses the qualities of both food and garment. It is thus superior to other mitzvot, which are garments alone. So basically, our Torah study is going to be on a higher level than our mitzvah performance. Therefore, Talmud Torah keneged kulam. And therefore, also, we should be careful that when we study Torah, to pronounce our words clearly so that it makes an effect, it makes a garment that surrounds, and it also brings into ourselves the holy words and making it a part of us. This concludes chapter 5. I'll just look at chapter 6 very briefly and look at the introduction over here, just so that we have an idea of where we're going in the next shiur. In the previous chapters, the Alter Rebbe discusses the divine soul. It's 10 faculties, 3 intellectual and 7 emotional, as we've discussed, and it's 3 garments which it expresses itself, namely the thought, speech, and action of Torah and the mitzvahs. These are the levels that we've learned about before. If you recall, we learned about a divine soul and an animal soul. And in the divine soul, there are 10 faculties. There are 3 above, which are the Chabad, the Chokhmah, Bina, and Dat, which refer to the mind of the person. And then there are the 7 emotional, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus. These are the emotional parts, the midot, the attributes. And then afterwards, we have 3 garments, the thought, speech, and action that we engage in. We take the godly soul and we enclose it within thought, speech, and action. And this makes us become what we become. That brings our godly soul out. He explained that the garments of the divine soul are actually on a higher level than the soul itself, inasmuch as Torah and God are one, and that by clothing itself in these garments, i.e. by studying the Torah and by performing the mitzvot, the soul is united with God. This is particularly true of Torah study, in which the soul both embraces and is embraced by the godliness contained in Torah. In chapter 6, the Alter Rebbe begins to discuss the animal soul. That's where we began with. And here we see that the Alter Rebbe is following a course. There's a story taking place here. We described that initially that the soul comes into the world and is administered with an oath, and you should be a tzaddik and don't be a rasha, and all these different things. And now we're learning the concept of what's making up the nature of our drives, the godly soul, the animal soul, the different faculties of it. And now we're moving one step ahead, and we're going to study the animal soul. What makes the animal soul behave as it does? We've learned about the godly soul, Torah study, mitzvah performance, in thought, speech, and action. What is going to cause us to express ourselves as the animal soul? He explains that its structure exactly parallels that of the divine soul, because as King Solomon said, that everything works in opposite. Whatever God created in one area, like in goodness, he also created in the area of bad. It too has 10 faculties and 3 garments. It's a mirror image of the godly soul. Only, unlike the divine soul, the substance of the animal soul is Kliphah, which means it is the husk, it is the shell, which means to say it surrounds like a fruit, which has a shell around it, a peel around it, a husk around it. And really the whole purpose of the husk is just to protect what's inside it. But ultimately what we want to do is to get rid of the peel so that we can get into the fruit itself. The Kliphah serves no real purpose other than distracting us from what's really inside, which is the good stuff. And its faculties and garments are impurity. By clothing itself in these garments, the animal soul descends to an even lower state of impurity. If we recall before that we said, when we spoke about the godly soul, when the godly soul enclothes itself in thought, speech, and action, its garments of the soul, it becomes greater. But when the animal soul enclothes itself in its garments, it becomes lower. It becomes even more impure. Concerning the concept of Kliphah, we have noted in chapter 1 that although all existence was created by and received its life from godliness, yet in order that man be able to choose between good and evil, and that he earn his reward by serving his creator by his own efforts, God created forces of impurity which conceal the godliness in all of creation. These forces are called Kliphah, plural Kliphot, literally meaning shells or peels. And just as the shell conceals the fruit, so do the forces of Kliphah conceal the godliness in every created being. We're going to stop our Tanya Shear at this point in time and continue next week, all being well. We're going to discuss more about the animal soul, and the animal soul, how it is made up of its 10 faculties, just like the godly soul. And then we will discuss the 3 garments of the animal soul, and we will learn more about how the animal soul expresses itself, and of course the trying test that we have of not allowing the animal soul to express itself, but rather focusing more on the godly soul, which is our duty. So I thank you for joining me. If you've enjoyed this shiur on YouTube, then please click on the like button and subscribe to my channel. Click on the bell so that you'll be notified of future shiurim. If you've gained something from the shiur, please let me know in the comments below, and share the video with your friends. If you would like to partner with us in anything else that we're doing or become a part of one of our shiurim, please visit my site www.lovingkindness.co, and I would be delighted to be in touch with you. Thank you for joining us, and I wish you all the best. Shalom, shalom. Bye-bye.